The people in the Bible did a lot of dumb things. And to talk with us about this, we have Ray Comfort, author of the book Idiotic Things People Did in the Bible. It's humorous, it has lighthearted moments, but also it's touching and serious and shows the need for redemption, the need that we have for God's grace. And so if you're watching this on YouTube and Rumble, you'll see this fantastic cover. I love the cover. I'll ask you about how, the cover came to be, the cover art that was chosen. But again, Ray Comfort, author and evangelist, is with me now. And I'll ask him how he's doing in one moment, but I have to share growing up, I love the gospel, I love the church, and I love sharing my faith, but I didn't always know how to go and do those things. Scary. What do you do? What do you say? And so I learned a lot by watching Ray Comfort go and evangelize on the street. He'd go and walk up to people and talk and ask questions. And that was a blessing to me. And now in my ministry with ARC. So, Ray, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here today.
Well, I'm so honored to be the idiotic author. Um, I love the title. The title came from a conversation I was having with the president of our ministry, Emil Swain, and I just somehow just mumbled something that so many idiotic things were done in the Bible. I thought, what a great title for a book. And that's all I need to write a book is a really, really good title. And you mentioned about the cover. Chat freaks me out. I'll tell you why. I did that in 30 minutes from start to finish. And I sent it to my publishers and they said, we love this. And I just typed in, give me the Mona Lisa freaking out, just looking shocked. And it came back as that. And I just thought, this is just amazing. So my heart goes out to graphic artists that sweat to create something like that over about 2 weeks. And yet it can be done on chat. So I think good will come of it. Will only improve. It's like when the microwave came, a lot of people probably thought life is over. Who's going to be able to cook? Cooks are out. Chefs are gone. No, no, no. We progress as human beings. We evolve.
Yes, incredible title. I love the artwork, and you're right. ChatGPT can do wild things and do them so quickly.
Yes.
So that'll be an adjustment. But it's one thing. All right, you said you had the title of the book, and that led to the book. But I have to say, as someone who would love to author a book one day, uh, what made you write the book as opposed to just file it away? Maybe I'll get to it someday. What led you to actually writing the book?
I have a hidden agenda. My agenda is to make Christians feel guilty when they don't evangelize, and so they should. Guilt drives me to reach out to the lost. You say, how could that be? That's not a pure motive. Look, if you've got a bucket full of roast chicken and you're walking through a field and there's starving kids on the ground and you don't share it with them, you should feel guilty because you are. And we should feel guilty if we don't share the gospel because we have everlasting life and there are multitudes sitting in the shadow of death. And so I want to make Christians feel guilty to a point where it electrifies the pews and they go out and do what they know they should. And I also want to reach the lost. And a title like this has the ability to grip the eyes of an unsaved person. Penn Jillette, the atheist, very famous magician from Las Vegas, I'm friends with him. So I sent him a copy. And it's the sort of thing he would take a double look at and say, yeah, idiots in the Bible, not realizing that we're all idiots. There's none of us can say, oh, every decision I've made has been really good. So it was an easy book to write because I realized that God's chosen fallible human beings from Adam and Eve and right through Cain and Abel. All those stories are written for our admonition and so that we won't fall into the same traps. Nate, some people say, when I die and go to heaven, what I want to do first is fall at the feet of Jesus. Well, I'm a little different because the first thing I want to do when I go to heaven is smack Adam in the mouth because every bit of suffering we have comes because of his foolishness, because he did an idiotic thing. As by one man, death came upon the world, and death came upon all of us because we've all sinned because of the disobedience of one man. And
Mm.
so it was an easy book to write and a fun book to write, because you look at David. I mean, who of us, look, I'm 76. I may not finish this interview, but I still battle with lust as I did when I was a teenager. Even that fire doesn't go down. So it's one you should never feed. And when I'm on my way to Huntington Beach every Saturday morning, I go early in the morning, especially in summer, because that's the girls have still got their clothes on because it's a little cool. If I go after midday, everything's almost off, and I just can't handle it, even at my age. So I said, Lord, help me to watch my eyes and help me to learn from David, who should have been out battling, but instead he is gazing at his neighbor who was bathing next door. And that's a dumb thing to do, because we're like dynamite, and any woman that bathes in front of us is like a match. It's going to light our fuse, and we just don't need that.
Mm.
God's created sex for our pleasure, for our procreation and pleasure. And the Bible says amazing things like enjoy the breasts of your wife. And so sex is a gift of God. We just have to obey the rules. If your dad gives you a Lamborghini and hands you the keys, he may say something like this: don't drink and drive, son. Don't drink and drive. And if you do, and he catches you, he'll probably take the keys off you. And all God says when it comes to the Lamborghini of sex is stay on the right side of the road. Don't do what David did. Don't follow in his idiotic steps. And
Mm.
that lesson is, and same with Solomon and same with Samson, all fell because of the same sin.
Yeah.
And it's such a lesson. And that's why I wrote the book.
Yes. I think that's wonderful. Don't ever think that you, by your own power, by your own strength, can defeat sin. That's just not going to happen. We need the grace of God and the strength of God. Now, as we look at all these characters that you have in the book, and I'm not going to mention all of them because I want my listeners to go and buy the book. Did you have, you mentioned Adam and you mentioned David, and this is a weird question to ask, but did you have a favorite dumb thing to write about or character who did a dumb thing of the list? Did anything stand out to you that, like, amongst the others, it was one of your favorites to write about?
Yeah, that's a dumb question. I really appreciate that. I like dumb questions given to the idiotic author. One of my favorites was Solomon, because Solomon and I have got a lot in common. He was rich and famous and very wise. I don't have that in common, but I did have in common the fact that I grew old prematurely. At the age of 20, I had my own business, my own house, my own car, my own wife, my own kid, everything I wanted financially and materially. And yet I saw this thing waiting for me called death. I thought, this is ridiculous. I could just be swept into death like that. No one talks about it. No one mentions it. We all just stand around waiting to die. You can get rich, you can get famous, you can get a yacht, you can do all sorts of things. You can go to Mars if you want, like Elon Musk, but you're going to die. And so what Solomon said, with all his wealth and fame and many, many wives, which is kind of scary, he said, vanity, vanity, all is vanity. It's chasing the wind. It was all because of this thing called death. And so I had that same experience that Solomon had at the age of 20, 21. I looked around at all my material goods and all the happiness I had, and I thought, the sharp pin of reality is going to prick that one day, and it could come tonight in my sleep, could come tomorrow. My wife could be taken from me,
Hmm.
my kid, and nothing. It was just futility, absolute despair. And I cried one night, tears rolling down my cheeks. Why? I looked up to the heavens, wasn't thinking of God for a second, even though I used to pray at night out of habit, saying the Lord's Prayer in about 10, 15 seconds out of a sleeping pill, got me to sleep. But 6 months later, I realized that God heard my cry, saved me. And it was when I saw the words of Jesus, whoever looks upon a woman to lust for her has committed adultery already with her in his heart. I thought, whoa, does God see my thought life? And that blew me away. And I thought, I'm in big trouble on Judgment Day. And suddenly the cross made sense, that Jesus took the punishment for the sin that I committed. And I could have everlasting life as a free gift, all because of God's goodness. So Solomon has a particular, it pulls on my heartstrings, his experience and the dumb things that he did. I mean, seriously, 1,000 wives? What's he going to say? Every 3 years, Oh, honey, I remember you 3 years ago. I like you. No, that's just crazy. And he had all the wealth and everything that he could ever desire, and it was just chasing the wind. And that's why my heart goes out to someone like Elon Musk, the poor, poor billionaire.
Mm.
Doesn't know what he's doing here on Earth to a point where he's trying to go to Mars. Who would want to go to Mars? Just go out and stand in the desert. It's about the same as Mars. And it's because he doesn't know why he's alive. And all his money means nothing to him because it can't save him from death.
Mm. The poor billionaire. I think that's well put. Now, Ray, what might you say as people, as you talk to people and you're sharing the gospel, and let's say you're on your way to handing someone this book, but someone tells you, Ray, you don't know my past. You don't know what I've done. You don't know the things I've done in secret that nobody knows about. I, I don't think God could love me. I don't think God could forgive me for the things I've done. What would you tell that person?
So, how many Christians have you killed? Have you killed Christians like the Apostle Paul? He went around killing Christians thinking he was doing God a favor. And yet he was saved as a sample of what God can do of this amazing grace. So, very rarely will someone say, I have sinned against God. It's about 1 in 1 million because we're a very self righteous generation.
Hmm.
I find that non Christians have this in common. They trivialize sin, they won't fess it up. That's human nature to do that, to be like Adam. They hide behind a bush from God because they know they've sinned against him. In fact, they will trivialize sin to a point of this, and I hear this all the time. Do you think you're a good person? Yes. How many lies are you told? Well, I've told a few just little lies. They're just small, tiny little white lies. Okay. You've stolen something. Yeah, when I was just a little kid, I stole some little candy from this little store. And it's just continued little. I'm expecting to say, so if you looked at a woman with lust, oh yeah, but just little woman, nothing big. It's just trivializing sin. And I say, do you realize what you're doing? You
Hmm.
may think sin is trivial, but God thinks it's very serious to a point where he's given you the death sentence. That's how serious sin is in God's eyes. The soul that sins, it shall die. The wages of sin is death. And so it's very important to understand that. It's also very important to understand the fact that whenever we're tempted by sin, we must realize that sin comes with a nasty bedfellow. Death and sin are hand in hand in Scripture. The soul that sins, it shall die. The wages of sin is death. Sin, when it's finished, brings forth death. So when you embrace the excitement of sin, Bathsheba, you're embracing death itself. And you don't want to do that because that will take you to hell. And so it's a great revelation to understand what causes death. And it's a great revelation to understand that God's grace can cover any sin, even sins such as mine. And I had a multitude of sins that I hid very, very well from everybody except God. And the other interesting thing is that you brought up, if someone says, I got secret sins, I say, no, you haven't. No one has secret sins. There's no such thing as a secret because all things lie open and naked before the eyes of him with whom we have to do. So there's no secrets in God's eyes or from God's eyes. And when we realize that, that's when we have to flee to Christ if we want to keep our life.
Flee to Christ. I like that. Now, okay, let's say you're talking with someone who does believe. You're at a church, maybe teaching. You're talking about how to evangelize, and someone tells you, uh, "Ray, I'm not the quickest on my feet. I'm not the most confident speaker. Like evangelism, it scares me. I don't know if I can do it or do it well." What might you say to that Christian?
I would say I've got a firefighter friend who is looking up on the fifth story at a woman who's leaning out the window with her two children in her arms and screaming because right behind her is a fire and she's trapped and she's going to be burned alive within about 5 minutes. So I'd say the firefighter, as he looks at that ladder, so you're going to rescue her or not? What excuses have you got? I just don't know how to do this. Well, train yourself to climb a ladder. Do it now. And so when we realize that sinners are going to hell, our little fears and worries about, oh, I might say the wrong thing, might not be able to answer their question. Doesn't matter because the Bible likens us to firefighters, others having compassion, making a difference, pulling them from the fire. So when I have fears, and I do. I get on my bike almost every day when the local college is open and go there twice. My dog's got sunglasses, sits on the bike on a platform. I wear sunglasses, and best bait I've ever had when fishing for men. But every time I get on the bike, I have negative thoughts. Whenever I go, see, I can't even speak properly. Whenever I go to approach a stranger, the guy looks like Goliath. And I have to say, no, no, it's coming down to Zacchaeus. And the way I do that is I don't think of my own fears. I think of the fate of the ungodly, like that firefighter doesn't think of the fact he's going to have to climb a ladder, sirens and smoke and screaming kids. He's got to reach out and grab those kids. Would he rather be somewhere else? Absolutely. But he doesn't think of himself. He thinks of the fate of that woman and her two children. And so don't think of yourself. Think of the unsaved. Don't think of what you can't do, because you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Open your mouth, he'll fill it. Pray for wisdom, he'll give it. So don't use excuses. Realize what's before you. An awesome, irksome task, as Spurgeon said, but we're going to do it because we love God and we love the lost.
I like that. And I think I remember Peter walking on water. When Peter fixed his eyes on Jesus, he could continue to walk. But when he was distracted, when he looked at the wind and the waves and he saw all that, he started to sink. You think about Moses, when God called Moses, Moses was like, well, I don't speak well. When we think about ourselves, our limitations, our weaknesses, our flaws, they're going to seem mighty. They're going to seem massive. But when we think about the fate of the unbeliever, and when we think about the greatness of our God who strengthens us, who give us the words to say, now all of a sudden my weaknesses, they're really small compared to the greatness of our God and the importance of the task. We think of the Great Commission that we are called to fulfill and obey. So I've enjoyed listening to all that. Now, as we think about evangelism and as we go back to this book, Idiotic Things People Did in the Bible, and I have to show the great cover once again for those watching on YouTube and Rumble. Uh, when people get this book, and maybe churches or small groups walk through it, there are lots of discussion questions throughout the book. Uh, what goal would you like for the reader to have? If a reader takes the book and does this, you will consider it a success.
Yeah, if they take the book and don't do those things, that's a success. Don't follow in the steps of Solomon, chase money. Don't follow in the steps of David and chase women. Don't be like Cain and let bitterness get in your heart to a point where it turns to murder. Don't do the things that are written in the Bible for our admonition, and do reach out to the lost, because there's nothing more important than reaching out to the unsaved. We've forgotten the Great Commission. I thank God the disciples in the upper room didn't carpet it out and put on air conditioning and pipe music with a little sign out the front, tonight, 7 o'clock, all welcome. They didn't wait for sinners to come to them. They went to sinners. They went into all the world to preach the gospel to every creature. Why? Because God had granted everlasting life to humanity. And so they said, we cannot but speak that which we've seen and heard. So use your life for God's will. And God's will is for us to follow in the footsteps of Jesus. Come after me and I'll make you to become fishers of men. If you look at your own fears, if you look at what Peter looked at, you're going to get that sinking feeling. But if you look to the Lord, look to Jesus, as the Bible tells us to, look to his example, be motivated by the compassion of Christ. The love of Christ constrains us, then your life will have meaning and you won't be like Elon Musk, who's chasing the wind.
Hmm. Now, as we think about the local church, positioned all throughout the country and the world ultimately, what are the biggest obstacles, or maybe a better word, excuses? What are the biggest excuses that you hear for why people and why local churches don't go and evangelize?
Rather than look at excuses, let me put my finger on what I think is the cause. What is a priority in the pulpit will be the priority in the pew.
Hmm.
If the pastor is into prosperity, if the pastor is into prophecy, if the pastor is into worship, or the pastor is into theology, but not into evangelism, which is the reason the church exists, the reason the church exists to be a tabernacle of witness in the wilderness, then he'll reproduce after his own kind. There's people will be into prophecy, people will be prosperity. And so what I would suggest to pastors is don't teach your flock how to evangelize, lead them, be an example of the flock. Go out and play racquetball, play tennis, play whatever you play with the ungodly. Rub shoulders with the ungodly. Don't be in a little holy huddle, a little clique of Christianity. Go out and then come back and say to your congregation, well, Wednesday I went out and I played racquetball with a guy named Fred. He was an atheist, so I told him it's impossible for nothing to create everything. So obviously there's a God. And he said, well, I never thought of that. And then I took him through the 10 Commandments, and he was very humble and repentant and listened to the gospel. So what's the congregation going to say? Whoa, pastor condescends to the irksome task of evangelism, and they will do the same. They'll be emboldened. They'll become courageous because they see their pastors doing it. We tend to imitate our pastors. I remember I was in a prayer meeting once, an interchurch prayer meeting, and I could tell who went to whose church by the way they prayed. I heard someone say, Father, and I thought, oh, he goes to John Steele's church because John Steele says, Father, as he begins to pray. And so people imitate their pastors. So if I was to speak to pastors, I'd say, be an example to the flock, reach out to the lost, do what you know you should, read the book of Acts and realize we're not like the book of Acts. We're like the book of inaction rather than the book of Acts when it comes to the lost.
Hmm. I like that. Don't just talk about it. Go and do it. Go lead by example. I think that's well said. Ray, I'm thankful for your time. I'm thankful for your book, Idiotic Things People Did in the Bible. As y'all read this book, just learn through these stories and these experiences not to be like that. Then also let this book motivate you to go and share the gospel. Tell people about Jesus. Doesn't matter your skill level with speaking or what level of charisma you have. As Ray put it, there's a fire. There's a fire going on, and we are positioned where we are so that we can share the light and life of the gospel for the unbeliever. Ray, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And thanks for mentioning the book. It's been really great.
I've enjoyed it myself. Real quick, before I let you go, if someone wants to learn more about you, learn more about your ministry, maybe check out this book or others, where can they go?
Livingwaters.com. And our YouTube channel's got 334 million views or something. Go there and check it out and watch how atheists are not to be feared. You can show God's existence to them in about 30 seconds, and how you'll be emboldened by watching people as they listen to the gospel. You'll realize that it's not as hard as you think. So Living Waters YouTube and livingwaters.com.
When I go to publish this episode, I'll have that information in the description. Y'all, my name is Nate Williams, the director of the Apologetics Resource Center. Until next time, y'all take care.